first topic, if I can find it. There is a new strain of COVID that is causing cases to surge, Omicron, which, like, I'm not the only one who realizes that's like almost a transformer, right? Like, it's a transformer.
Omicron
Here's the deal, guys. One, right? I'll get the vaccine.
Yeah,
you fucking leave me alone. And did that work? Okay. No. I dig stupid me.
But,
got him.
All right, anyway, it's killing people. The nations have been responding by closing their borders once again to travelers from affected countries. Is this sustainable? Should countries just
I'd love to debate him on anarchism.
Will continue to arise, so it should operate normally.
I have a document I have to share with you, Liquid Zulu. Remind me in Discord.
Does it not make sense to alter normal life and business?
I have a document for that specific debate, full of quotes from anarchists.
Thing, right? Well, there's lots of stuff we're going to cover here, but it's not unsurprising that we have a new variant, right? And it won't be unsurprising next year when we find the Omega variant, right? Like, it's going to happen. And so how much of this, so is there a balance that we haven't quite found yet with these things in terms of, like, openings and closures and safety, right? Should we kind of just let it ride? Which a lot of people were saying at the very start of this all.
I'm sure.
So I'm curious what you all have to say. We'll start with my man, GSU Gambit.
Got it. As always, I have to go first. I'm cool with that though. So yeah, man, this is a lot, especially for me, because I'm a person that I used to be out with friends a lot. I was a very outgoing person, and then COVID happened, and now I work from home and I never get to leave the house. So it's been I've been a bit impatient with the amount of different.
Jeffrey, why do you always come in with that copy pasta?
It's going to continue to happen. But what prescriptions would I make about us closing down the economy? I don't know, and I can be pushed and pulled either way. I hate that I'm like the dirty centrist on this, but
it doesn't even make sense.
On both sides, there's mental health concerns with locking down and just staying in the house all day, and there's also problems with.
Yeah, sure. I'll have a Q&A with you in the middle of a debate panel.
So, I think that we have to find a balance. I think that there will likely always be new versions of this, and this is why I'm buying the Oculus as we speak, because I'm just gonna just move into VR, and like that's the real solution to this. The real solution is we're just gonna embrace VR, and yeah, hopefully that works out.
How will you get food?
We'll talk when it opens.
Do you have your VR? Amanda in chat saying that you already had it. Are you just buying it?
I'm literally purchasing it as we speak. I'm waiting on somebody to tell me what things I need to buy, and then I'm going to place the purchase.
I mean, fair enough.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So I was wondering, I figured if you actually had it, then you would not have time to be here anymore. Okay. Well, thank you so much. All right. Let's go to Scott.
Yeah. So, much to the chagrin of all of your viewers, I'll try and stay away from philosophy and morals and ethics here. Right? I know that you guys really want to hear me talk shit on consequentialism and utilitarianism and explain why you need like virtue ethics and deontology. But no, I think number one, we've seen a lot of research and data that just doesn't support lockdowns and travel restrictions as an effective means of slowing and stopping the virus. Now, is there some slow to it? Maybe, right? But not enough for it to be efficacious in terms of reducing the overall impact of COVID, especially while we're already in the midst of a pandemic. It's not like this is a new virus completely. It's just a new variant. It's a new surge, right? And on top of that, we have 114 reported cases in South Africa, 19 in Botswana, 12 in the Netherlands, 5 in Australia, 5 in Hong Kong, 4 in Italy, 4 in the UK, 2 in Canada. And then we also have this variant in Germany, Belgium, Israel, Spain, and the Czech Republic, right? That's what's currently reporting. And those are positive cases that we have found. The idea of enacting travel restrictions as a means of slowing this spread is an absurdity, right? It's just not going to work. It's going to get into those countries full tilted some way. If you're worried about the variant and the new effects and the possible problems of it, I understand that. But like I said, I would not get into the philosophy of those things. We'll just look at the data and the science for this debate. I don't think that it's going to be effective means of stopping or slowing the spread of this. The only thing it's going to do is the same thing all of these mandates have done, which is institute policies that make politicians more powerful, institute policies that make corporations richer, and institute economic programs and inflation and issues that have hurt the poor and the middle class at the expense of people living in gated communities that think they can mandate these things away.
Okay, let's go to counterpoints.
Yeah, basically, I would just let it ride at this point. I think anybody who's going to be
yeah, those are just new cases.
And if there is a complication, the disease is worse or something, then we can kind of dial that in. But this is what the new world looks like, where we're going to have it used to be the cold and the flu that would have like seasonal spikes. Now we're going to have COVID seasonal spikes, and we're going to have variants, and we're going to have annual shots and all that kind of stuff. And I understand that's terrifying for conservatives or whatever to basically, I don't know, get a vaccine that stands a significantly less chance of giving you heart problems than the disease itself, but they're just gonna have to fucking cope and deal with it, and we'll have to dial it in. And at this point, I hate to be fucking Darwinian on it, but I'm a little Darwinian on it, particularly when it comes to vaccine hesitancy. They've had time, fuck it.
Oh, this is going to be nice.
I hope someone goes back on something that Connor said. No one does. I'll do it myself.
I will.
We're definitely talking to open. For sure.
Yeah. Let's go.
I will trust.
Okay. Jason Society, please.
Yeah. So I was reading over that article that was provided for this, and it seems like it squarely is regarding restricting travel. I think if there is a hotbed, a virus hotbed, I think restricting travel is a good thing. I don't see
the true Darwinian is laissez-faire. I love it.
Anything wrong with limiting our exposure, and that may be what prevents us from having to do full lockdowns in our country. So I'm totally fine with that.
Take the little authoritarianism, so we're not forced to institute the big authoritarianism.
To get the vaccine, short of mandating it if we can. Because really the only way we're going to reach the herd immunity that the vaccine is supposed to provide is if enough people actually get the vaccine to make it worthwhile. At this point, we're not there, and that's why we're still seeing these variants, and that's why we're still seeing spikes in different parts of the world.
God, this guy doesn't know anything about the science.
We absolutely should do these travel restrictions. I would like to prevent country lockdowns at all costs if we can, but I think that's an easy way to do it. You just keep out where it's coming from, hopefully address the issues there, try to encourage those people in those countries to get vaccinated and to seek medical treatment so that they can be taken care of. And
are you guys rebub or libtard? Vaping is bad, by the way. Vaping is bad and delicious. And we are classical liberals and anarchists.
Like this is something that we're going to eventually need to work.
There's a lot of there's an open 10 here.
Like array of vaccines people.
If you want to pitch one,
should get every year, like the flu shot.
Go ahead and do it. Just don't post pictures. That's TOS.
I understand the panic. I think that that's a little bit overblown. I think eventually you just got to come to the realization that some people are going to get sick and die. Old people get sick and die sometimes, and hey, it might happen more often going forward because of this shit. But that's
I need to get more water.
Not that crazy. And I think I agree with Connor about the vaccine hesitancy thing. I think that at this point, if you're still hesitant about getting the vaccine, I don't give a fuck. Fuck it. If you want to, put yourself on the fast track to ending up in the hospital, coughing up your lungs or whatever, that's fine. And I think it's totally fine that we shut down borders. If there's a really bad outbreak in South Africa, you don't get to go on vacation in South Africa for a while. Big deal. I think it's fine.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Wordy.
Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a ramble. First off, deontology relies on consequentialism. 2 is inflation does not have any relation to spending in this instance. We're seeing massive inflation rising all across
You gotta love
the
it.
world.
Deontology doesn't exist, boys.
Through, like the comparable
Requires
countries, it's
consequences.
seen that the inflation is rising. This whole idea of spending, when you have inflation with the incomplete demand, the incomplete meeting between demand and supply, literally inflation is rising because we're having a supply crunch. Like increasing spending has no effect here. Like even if it does, it's going to have a minimized effect. So like this whole comparison of inflation increasing, massive inflation, now it doesn't happen. Also, like I really don't like this idea because first of all, South Africa only has 24% of its population vaccinated. So also like we can also acknowledge here, Omicron, we don't know if it's a real threat yet, right? We're keeping eyes out. That's the whole part of purposely putting up the travel bans. This way we can keep an eye out, and if there's no issue, we let it go. Like that's literally it. Like it's not this whole art like they're taking more power or whatever. It's literally just saying, hey, keep an eye out, make sure we shut it down temporarily, because remember, the issue between supply crunch is not between travelers going for tourist issues in different countries. It's specifically between like shipping issues. So like this whole thing about like everything, and also like we also know that the COVID lockdowns were absolutely successful. Like the problem comes is the inconsistency in application. Like when we see in India, we have 4 micro lockdowns, and because we only had 4 micro lockdowns in comparison to places like Vietnam or like Japan, like literally that inconsistency caused more deaths because you saw like a surge in COVID deaths and like cases each time. So like this whole argument of like it doesn't like resolve issues, it absolutely does, because it's in the air. If you have more chances to interact with people, you literally cause more issues. So this whole argument of like lockdowns didn't work, it's really stupid.
Thank you so much, Biggs.
Yeah, so I think that this whole thing with the new variant is something we probably need to be at least a little bit concerned about. I think that right now,
call it whatever you want.
They haven't really found if it's any more deadly, maybe a little bit more contagious, possibly. But at this point, I don't think it's really worth freaking out over. Like some of you said earlier, this is something that's going to be endemic now. Basically, we've seen with like vaccines and stuff, the effectiveness of them are waning. These constant variants just aren't going to be something we're going to be able to deal with vaccines. We're just not going to be able to keep up on it. At best, we'll make it similar to the flu, with they're about 50% effective in treating the seasonal flu with every different time. You know, there's a new year, there's a new flu vaccine, things like that. As far as shutting down the borders, I think that if a country wants to shut down their borders, that's fine. I think what's kind of boggles my mind is that we have all this stuff about the pandemic, but then we have our borders just kind of wide open, not testing people coming across the border and stuff like that. That kind of seems a little counterintuitive to me. But yeah, so I think that as far as the overall thing, I'm not really concerned about COVID anymore. I know it's still a thing that's going to be around, but I think we all kind of just got to get past this. We're never going to be able to completely remove it from society at this point. So I think at this point we just need to kind of mitigate the damage and just kind of move forward and try to, get things back to normal as best we can.
Sneaky, please.
So the problem with the Omicron variant is like multi-factored. So firstly, the test that we've been using to determine whether you've got COVID or not, the Omicron variant is particularly good at avoiding. So they may produce a false negative, which is like the worst. Like a false positive is bad, but when you get a false positive, you can go, well, lockdown just to be safe, which is a pain, but at least you can take safety procedures there. Whereas if you get a false negative, obviously you go, well, it's negative. That means we have to do more tests, we have to spend more money, and maybe you don't get locked down, even though you do have the virus at the end of the day, which is a big problem. Secondly, this is the most mutated variant that we've seen so far. So from the original SARS-CoV-19 or SARS-CoV-2-19, whatever it is, this is the furthest from that. And the problem with that is the spike gene, which is like the way that the virus enters the body or enters a cell, has mutated. That's the part that's mutated, and that's primarily where the vaccines have been targeted. So this one is likely more like partially vaccine resistant at least, right? And if it keeps mutating down this path, then we are going to see fully vaccine resistant COVID. So this is like definitely something to keep an eye on. I will say there haven't been there's not a lot of research into this yet. However, several studies are being conducted, and we'll see over the next few weeks how that is going. So the Omicron variant is certainly not to be taken lightly for the fact that the virus has come so far. In terms of addressing the problem, quite frankly, the variants are all spraying up at unvaccinated countries because the virus is still being allowed to spread, still being allowed to mutate. We need to be pumping of vaccines into basically the southern hemisphere. Everybody needs to be fucking vaccinated. We need to be giving out free vaccines to fucking everyone because it's in all our interest to see the entire world vaccinated. And I say this specifically as a Brit because we're the biggest manufacturers of vaccines in the world at the moment, and we need to be sending them fucking everywhere. Everywhere needs to get vaccinated. As far as travel bans go, for the US, potentially, if the Omicron variant, the results show that it is like particularly a pain due to the fact that it's difficult to pick up on its testing, with testing, and it's a little bit more contagious. Although I have seen that it's potentially a little bit less deadly, especially to people with the vaccine. I could see maybe a travel ban being necessary due to the fact that the US has more people coming in from unvaccinated populations, specifically South America, and their low vaccination rate there. Whereas, say, with another country, say the UK, most of our travel comes from countries with very high vaccine rates, so it doesn't really seem necessary to do so. However, in the UK, we are introducing masks again in public spaces, such as
reinstituted the mask mandate in the UK. Yeah,
we call them we call them supermarkets, like big grocery stores.
Yeah, sure.
And
y'all got that from America.
And public transport as well.
Are you an ASMR streamer?
No, I just have to be quiet because it's like 2 a.m. here.
Yeah.
So I think this is reasonable, right? You don't have to wear a mask just when you're outside. You don't have to wear a mask going to other people's houses. There's no limits on the amount of people you can meet. You can still go to the bar, the pub, or whatever. But to protect these like specifically dangerous areas with just a mask seems quite reasonable, especially because like you only spend like at most an hour in one of these places. I think it seems fairly reasonable. So it's not to be taken lightly. The root of this issue will get much worse if not addressed, and we need to address the root very quickly. We need to be giving vaccines to the southern hemisphere and those countries have unvaccinated populations. And for now, just follow the fucking rules. Just follow the fucking rules. Wear the mask. Probably social distance. Wash your hands. Do all that shit for now. Because if you don't, in 3 weeks' time, we might have a real fucking problem on our hands.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right. Up to the panel.
I want to echo a lot of this stuff that Sneaky said, because I think
it's be interesting. They're going to be pissed
with the Darwinian takes. It seems a little bit weird. So I have two friends actually who are very close to research with this new variant, and one of them, she literally hit me up today and she said, hey, and this is all preliminary, the data is going to change literally by the day, so trust absolutely no data that you hear on the first day. Even everything that I'm saying now, don't trust it, because like things are going to develop, right? But in one of the tests that they did, they said that it looks like the vaccine efficacy dropped by like 40%, right? And this was just one isolated test. So there is this concept that this thing could be a big deal. And when we just go the Darwinian route of, well, if people haven't been vaccinated, oh well, fuck them. It's possible that people that even have been vaccinated could be affected by this. But we'll see probably in 2 weeks to a month how the data bears out, and we'll see what the efficacy is relating to it. The 30 mutations is definitely a big deal for sure. But yeah, this is why when the whole booster conversation happened, a lot of people were upset with me, but I always had to take that we should be exporting this as much as possible to other countries, because the Delta variant, the Omicron now, and the other variant, none of them came from within the US border. So this idea that we're going to get herd immunity in America, to me, it's a antiquated concept. We now live in a interconnected global society, so problems that arise in other nations are eventually going to make their way here through travel unless we completely shut down borders. So even from the beginning of this, I told people that the idea that we're going to reach this normalcy and believe in everything you hear on TV was ridiculous to me. So I think a lot of people should wake up to how connected we are as a society and how catastrophes abroad in respiratory viruses and stuff like that can affect all of us. So yeah, it's kind of,
so
I mean,
so yeah, so let me, is everyone ready to,
we are one variant closer to the Sigma variant, which will be very entertaining memes when we get there.
That will be entertaining. So is everyone ready to buckle up and get their keyboard warrior fingers nice and warmed up, because I'm about to dispense with all of this medical misinformation and conspiracy theories
Let's do it.
that you guys are engaged in. So
are you dropping in the group chat?
what's that? Oh yeah, I'm just, wherever we're going, right? So
Drop it in the group chat.
why do you keep saying drop it in the group chat? What are you talking about?
Because he's assuming you have something to back up your perspective.
Oh, you want me to drop all of my sources? We're gonna play that boring ass game. I always post all my sources afterwards. Wordy, you can join my Discord. We'll probably have to debate bro you right off the beginning, because I'm sure you'll be screaming and screeching at people. But I'll give you access to all those sources afterwards. So ton of new scientific information and some of the problems you guys are talking about, right? I think it's really interesting that Sneaky Debate Man actually kind of got a lot right here, right? Like, we're talking about what we know from G said is that we have, we've mapped out some of the changes. Obviously, we don't know what those changes functionally mean, but we know that there's some phenotypical mutations within the spike proteins of the Omicron variant, right? More so than what we saw in the Delta variant, right? Now, we already have research coming out of Marseille from Nawara Yahi. I have no idea how to pronounce that correctly because she's French at the University of Marseille. Extremely cited, right? Preliminary research showing ADE already occurring within the Delta variant itself, right? So with ADE already occurring within one variant, and you're talking about additional problems of ADE with the mutations of the spike proteins, right? And then you follow that up with, oh, well, this means we need to get everyone vaccinated, means that, like, you got to dig deeper into what the research actually says. So trust the science, not this anti-science narrative that you guys are pushing. The problem here, right, is when you have a spike protein that keeps changing its cellular structure. Well, why is this occurring? Well, viruses, right, when you don't have vaccines, the way they naturally mutate is they tend to become more transmissible and less deadly, right? Like, that's the life cycle of most viruses, right? Because a virus that kills its host is not a very good virus because it doesn't spread, it doesn't mutate, it doesn't beat out other competing variants, right? So that's what normally occurs. But when you have a leaky vaccine, right, where even Pfizer's own studies show at 4 months that for the Delta variant, they're down to 53% transmission efficacy, which is a whole nother ballpark of getting into what that term actually means, as opposed to what it's designed to do for journalists in abstracts, right? What you understand is that as we continuously develop new variants and we don't change and we're not able to catch up with vaccines, you have what is occurring, which is that they're saying, oh, well, we'll just up the dosage. We'll just up the dosage. Everything will be fine, except that dosage is using long spike proteins. These are not inert spike proteins. That's why we have massive amounts of adverse effects from these vaccines. That's why these vaccines can be potentially harmful. Now, they're less harmful than alpha variant of the virus, but as you continue, right, as you continue getting more boosters and you keep upping the dosage, you have two major problems. One, ADE, antibody dependent enhancement, right, which can actually make the vaccinated more likely to die from the virus. And two, right, you have the issue of the danger of what these spike proteins can do. We have research, preliminary research, it's obviously not peer reviewed yet, coming out of Sweden showing that spike proteins have the ability to enter the nucleus of a cell and damage the capacity of the nucleus to repair mutations that can cause cancer. We could be looking at individuals both with COVID and those with the vaccine developing cancer later in life. But the main thing to understand here is that when you have acquired immunity from a vaccine, what your body is doing is producing antibodies for the spike proteins, because that's what's used in the mRNA as well as what's used in the Johnson & Johnson and Medigen from Taiwan.
29, right?
Okay,
right. The problem is with, and then I'll finish and I'll wrap it up with this. Right. Well, I got to dispense with all this medical misinformation. The problem is the acquired immunity, right? Acquired immunity that you get from an infection.
Your sources, so I don't.
Oh wait, okay.
Just let him wrap.
Acquired immunity from a natural infection allows your body to produce antibodies for the membrane, for the hemagglutinin esterase, for the envelope proteins, for the nucleocapsid proteins, for the lipid bilayer membrane, and the spike proteins.
20 seconds instead of 10 minutes. Holy shit.
The vaccine, that is why we have ADE.
Okay, so I'm gonna hop on this. Wait, GSU, let me finish. Okay.
I just want to summarize what he said, because you're finna argue with him, but a lot of people aren't following what he said. I can say what he said a lot in like regular sentences, right? So what he's saying is that there's 29 proteins in the coronavirus. If you naturally get the disease, you develop immunities even to the other 28, not just the one that's in the virus. So when he was talking about leaky things, what he's saying is that if you have a vaccine that is not fully what's the word we want to use, protective, and the efficacy is fading over time, potentially as that infects hosts that have that vaccine, then the virus itself will learn to replicate against that. That's all he said. But yeah, go ahead. I just wanted people to
So FLS, you it's kind of funny how you say we're spreading misinformation when literally all you said was bullshit, okay? First off, natural immunity does not work as well as vaccination. 5 times.
There's no such thing as natural immunity. It's called acquired immunity.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Okay, so like basically is when you get infected, you are much more likely to like get sick, have much more longer consequences, much more likely to spread it. So that was the CDC study was recently done. Also, I've looked over like the whole leaky vaccines. In theory, it's possible that potentially a virus is like able to survive the vaccines. But the problem comes is we've done the research on the vaccines now, and we've researched other vaccines that have been implemented, like the whole chicken scratch one. What basically we understand is when you expose like the HIV drug process, you basically make you basically combine a bunch of like able to attack a bunch of spike proteins all at once together in the vaccines. Therefore, it's basically impossible for an actual leaky vaccine thing. That's a whole misinformation. It's a lie. It doesn't actually happen in reality. So basically what you've been saying is bullshit, okay? So like basically, yeah. You're spreading misinformation.
If you say basically enough, people might believe you.
Yeah, well, basically,
so basically, based off of this information, would it be better to get immunized and then get infected?
Oh my god, you're killing me. I don't understand why anybody would take the word of an ANCAP and an anarchist, like trust their ability to interpret medical data or to know what any of the shit that Fabian or
I've literally researched this, Doobie. I've spent hours upon hours of this.
How the fuck am I supposed to trust your ability to research anything?
Do you want me to send you the studies later? I can literally send all of them to you.
Basic common sense. I don't think any of this like matters, right? I don't think what the studies say matters. I don't think any of us here are qualified to know what any of this actually fucking means in the real world. I think it's way more interesting to have a conversation about the implications and the limitations of a government to place restrictions on a populace because of an outbreak like this, right? And whether or not this is something that we can be okay with. And if it's not something we can be okay with, then why not? And what should the response be if the government tries to lock down again?
Okay, but before anybody else jumps in, Doobie, really quickly, wouldn't the most effective way, at least based off of what I'm hearing, would the most effective way not be to get like immunized and then get exposed to the disease and then have the benefits of both properties?
I think acquired immunity, like it's very short-lived. It only lasts like I think it's like 3 months or something like that. So you'd have to get the virus.
No, they did studies. Nature magazine did study early on in the pandemic that showed that individuals that had recovered from SARS, the original SARS in 2003, right, had partial acquired immunity to SARS-CoV-2, right? So to say that it just disappears quicker, right?
Yeah, I'm going to back up FLS. It's not so much whether or not you still have like an active immune response to a disease that's not present in your body. It's whether or not your body has the memory to fight the disease later on, which is difficult to measure.
It doesn't.
So as a result, like, well, I would like to, I don't want to do the fucking study thing. I want to follow Doobie with where he's going. But my point is basically like, I think if you got a vaccine and if I think you got exposed to the disease itself, that would probably give you, like, as long as you didn't get murked by it, that'd probably be the best way to do it. And then if there's people who are immunocompromised who can't do the vaccine, then it's probably best for them to take every safety precaution possible while balancing their life. And that's pretty much what we need to do. So I would say, barring like an increased lethality rate with the new variants or whatever, I would say no lockdowns, get vaccinated, and then eventually you'll get exposed to the disease. And then, like I said, it'll probably be like the cold or the flu. And then Gambit, if I seemed like I was being a little bit too Darwinian with it, I'm not saying like, hey, let's just like deliberately infect everybody who's immunocompromised. I'm just saying like the Swedish model plus vaccinations. For those of you who don't remember, the Swedish model was basically like healthy people still do their thing and people who are immunocompromised stay home. So that plus vaccines, I think, is a perfectly reasonable balance.
You're right, barring one problem. And that is if a new variant comes out and the vaccine causes ADE, which we saw in phase 2 clinical trials with mammals. Right, we haven't seen it yet in humans.
In vitro, what doesn't mean it doesn't demonstrate in reality, okay?
Right, that's literally what I'm saying. It was phase 2 clinical, and we saw it but we've not seen it in humans.
That indicates that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we have studies like I just said, I can send you the one from Marseille that was published in Journal of Infection August 16th and was recently New England as well, from Marseille, showing that the Delta variant is showing some signs of ADE. Right. And so as we have a population that's constantly having breakthrough infections and constantly spreading variants, and these variants are able to mutate, and the ones that are vaccine resistant are the ones that are the most likely to survive in a vaccinated population.
Do you get that we wouldn't have those variants if people got vaccinated?
Because it's fundamentally impossible. Sorry.
That's not true.
Wait. We cannot agree all the way with Fabian, but some of what he's saying is absolutely scientific, and to deny it is to be like ascientific. It is true. Wait. It is. Hold on. Just to be clear, because I don't want to argue this. I feel like what Doobie said was amazing, and which never happened. So we should take heed. But there is a danger in breakthrough cases of any vaccine if the vaccine is able to live in those people and replicate. That's possible. To what degree you think it's possible with COVID, I don't even care to have that conversation, right? But that the statement that he's saying is true. He may take it to a far hyperbolic level than you do, but that statement is absolutely true. But we shouldn't argue that.
But the problem that comes is because when you think about it, right, is you get the vaccine and you get infected, right? It's not because you're going to individually develop the variant, because your body is able to fight off, because it's able to target the specific enough proteins and be able to deal with the issue. The issue is the unvaccinated you spread it to, and that's the issue. It's not you individually because you got vaccinated, but if you get more and more people vaccinated, we see with other diseases, is because more and more people get vaccinated, or the people who got the disease and died, you know what happens? The variants don't develop. We have things like the smallpox because people aren't getting vaccinated. Smallpox came back, and it's the same thing with COVID. That's the issue.
Yeah, I agree with what
so a bifurcated needle of a live attenuated virus actually works with smallpox. It doesn't fucking work with the COVID vaccine.
He's being censored. Anyway, I agree with Doobie, and I agree with what he yes, we do see these variants come out of unvaccinated populations. That's where the variants are coming from, right? There's no infections coming out of new variants coming out of Germany.
We don't actually know if it came from Hong Kong or from South Africa. We surmise it most likely came from South Africa.
We surmised it most likely, exactly. So the best we've got is it comes from an unvaccinated population, which supports my argument. Thank you. So this goes back to my original point. We do need to get these people vaccinated, and to move on to Doobie's point, right? The eggheads know better than any of us, right? To imagine that they didn't think of any of this when they were like, yeah, you should get the vaccine. We know how the vaccines work is fucking ridiculous, right? The people in it's probably one person on the vaccine team in Cambridge who knows more about this than all of us combined times 10, right? They know way more about this than all of us, and their advice is way more sound than anything you could possibly look up or try to understand on the internet, right? I completely trust them, right? Because they've done this literally for generations. And they have saved countless numbers of people. So I think appealing to authority in this sense is pretty okay, because they're fucking smart. Okay, they're big fucking.
Well, you have to assume pure incentives.
Fat brain.
Can you demonstrate that they're actually having bad incentives to do things? This is the whole problem. You can poke holes.
Aren't you an anarchist?
Yeah, I'm an anarchist, and I look at how the things work
So you can't come of any examples of the state and large corporations having bad incentive structures?
Potentially, doesn't mean they are, right? I can think of potentially anything if I really want to pull things out.
And I said you're assuming pure incentives.
No, but you're assuming impure incentives.
No, I'm not. I just said he's assuming.
Two extremes, so it's not going to be solved here. Y'all can maybe solve that later, right? Both of y'all are on two polar opposite sides.
Yeah, the smart side and the dumb side.
Whatever. Anyway, yeah.
God, sorry.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to interrupt.
Well, no, so I was going to say, but I don't feel like there's any advice here that isn't in line with the fucking eggheads. We're basically saying, we have to balance out all of these threats, and just because you're a world-renowned virologist doesn't mean that you know shit about economics. So basically, it has
Right.
to be a balanced threat. So I would say 99% of the time, there's probably 1% of cases where immunization, maybe you're the one fucking person where the vaccine will fuck you up more than the fucking disease. Doubt it. Very much doubt it. So 99% of people need to get vaccinated, and then we need to go to the hybrid model, because the truth is that there are impacts, not just from COVID itself, but from the economics, in trying to get to maybe something a little bit outside of like who knows how to use the most 14-letter words. Fucking like the COVID absolutely has affected inflation. I'm not saying the spending is a problem, but I'm saying that you're talking about the supply chains. The supply chains are interrupted because of the economic activity that's been affected by the pandemic disease. So we can't pretend that like these things aren't worthy of consideration in the totality of the circumstance.
Yeah, well, that's why you can introduce rigorous testing for trade people, but you also maintain travel bans. This way you can at least maintain the economics while also decreasing the likelihood of the spread. Like, this is a no-brainer. We've done this kind of stuff in the past.
Got it. America first. Got it. Okay, cool.
I mean, at this point, we don't know if a travel ban is necessary. Like Fabian is right. There are extremely low amount of cases at the moment. We seem to be on top of it. Maybe some like light restrictions, like I said, what England is doing, wearing masks in like heavily crowded places that people need to be in. I think it's very reasonable. Like introducing a travel ban after this variant has been around for like 3 weeks now. It's just
it's 4
really
weeks.
Unnecessary.
Well, it was because it was Africa. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I mean, Africa as a continent is only 6% vaccinated, and they seem to be doing pretty well. There's a lot. We're trying to figure out why. Some people think it might be exposure to malaria. They're doing research on that. They think that might be a protective factor. The other part is likely that there's a lot more rural communities and they're a lot less spaced out as opposed to living in population density. But they think both of those may be a factor. It'll be interesting to see if exposure to malaria or some antivirals that have been used in that have been helpful in some way in reducing the replication of the virus.
Yeah, you can use.
What is the reliability of the reporting in those areas, though? I mean, is the reliability of the reporting good, or could it be that a lot of people just aren't reporting that they have COVID?
Or that have testing facilities and all those things. We can't assume that data is comparable to what we have here, right? Especially since they can't even get their hands on fucking
right. I mean, everything is a guess, right? What the CDC does is a guess. I mean, they don't, when they track breakthrough cases, they do it in 99 counties in 14 states, right?
No,
right.
This is directly reported by different hospitals, and they literally take that information.
Exactly. What I'm saying.
Taking money to report it.
I mean, they were in the beginning, but regardless, that's what I'm saying is that everything is an estimate, right? So and you have some level of statistical likeliness of variance, right? Like you can say like with some degree of mathematical certainty what range it falls in, and within that range, Africa is still one of the least impacted continents, and many of the African nations are least impacted, with the exception of South Africa.
Well, and kind of going back to your point, like, doesn't that kind of indicate like urban density might be playing a factor, like in malaria too?
Yeah, both.
That's a super interesting example for like how complicated these things can be. Talking a little bit shit, but not too much shit. Is the fact that like basically like wasn't
what's a better anarchist
for ivermectin or whatever? Is it like it basically disrupts the ability of like viral bodies to replicate or something like that? So that would actually
in
be super
theory
interesting. If some kind of, I'm not talking about like ivermectin specifically, but like I'm just trying to say like it would be interesting if that protective factor actually was helping out a lot. But again, like kind of like you said, all speculative. All of this is speculative like a motherfucker. But that's where I think that you just have to return to the fucking model that makes more sense.
Chat is now calling me racist by bringing this up.
Perpetuity. People need to take calculated risks, and we got to keep the world moving. We, barring any lethality information, you got to keep it moving.
Wait, so Connor, are you in favor of like vaccine passes or passports, whatever the fuck they're going with now?
That would actually be interesting. So, like, I would say continental United States, no, but maybe international. If individual nations want to set their own standards, I wouldn't be offended by that.
Okay. I mean, personally, I'm totally fine with them within the continental United States. But
well, we know you are, but
I know you're not intelligent yet, so.
Right.
It's okay. The frog hasn't evolved fast enough. But I do want to say, like, it's the whole model. Like, basically, countries are like, hey, like, it's not just like America first. It's like basically countries saying, hey, we're not going to travel like in these areas because we all understand if this stuff gets like really worse, it gets worse. You know, like it's not just this whole America first model. I feel like that was kind of like a meme, but like
I was absolutely memeing. I was just saying the Fuentes crowd would be fucking happy that you're like, oh, you know, we have to take dangers into consideration, so therefore we should actually do not just or I think somebody suggested travel bans but not economic bans. I think that's an interesting like quasi model, because the truth is that like the economics, like the movement of cargo containers, the movement of goods between countries is almost more important than the movement of people themselves.
I also do want to like remark on something like past before. They are testing in like at Mexico, like the border and everything. It's just the problem comes is the amount of resources they have dedicated. So like if you want more like effective testing, you just want to dedicate more resource to be able to deal with that more than anything.
So my issue is that with this let it ride type mentality, that like it kind of like I and this is nothing new, I'm not saying anything profound, right? That when we see statistics, right, like those deaths, like they tend to not mean anything to us, right? Just like numbers go up, numbers go down. But like we forget, those are real people on the other side of those, right? Those are each of those are a tragedy that's occurred, right? Here at home and around the world. So it's like, well, just let it ride.
So young bias.
Would you?
What's the option? What's the other option?
Well, I mean, I think at least like trying to bend the curve, right? Buying us time to get more people protected, right? So there are a lot of people who are not, and especially like around the world, right? So like I didn't mean this just to be specifically like a U.S. focused topic, right? But just like around the world. There are other countries like Singapore. Singapore has said, like I think it was our health minister that was on some television program saying, yeah, we're just gonna let it ride. The best we're going to do, we're going to up our medical capacity, right? Or try to get more hospital beds. But other than that, we're done with this. Like it's just going to burn out, right? I think the
Lost Zode, I'd love to talk with you about it, but not during a panel.
If a country has access to vaccines, right? And then people aren't taking them, then that's one thing, right? On the other side of it, countries that simply can't get it, like Fabian Scott said, right? Those countries that have like vaccination rates, right, like in the single digits. So I think we just gotta like realize that the nations that can that have the most vaccination rates are keeping it away, right? Are gatekeeping it behind a fucking paywall. The vaccines that can save individual lives. So they say like, well, these countries need to let it ride. I mean, especially since we're all interconnected.
Right, but you're taking a lot of presumptions there, right? Number one, like look at Sweden, right? I mean, they had a heavy lockdown initially, and then they let it ride, and they've let it ride the entire time.
And it was a disaster.
It was not a disaster. It is not a disaster.
In the world, that's why it worked. Because contact tracing. We don't even fucking do that here.
No, they said it was a disaster. Like the health minister
we
was
do
like, this is a terrible idea. We never should have done this. Like,
no, yet we're still in the same situation. We're still in the same boat, and their deaths have not been any statistically significantly larger than countries that did institute large lockdowns. So yeah, you can say like, oh, people in government institutions said that it was a disaster, but when you actually look at the data, it's not a fucking disaster. What is a real disaster here is that you're calculating human lives, right? Which I think is really interesting because you bring up like the whole like, Stalin quote, the death of one is a tragedy, the death of a million is a statistic, right? And yet at the same time, you're looking at everything from the lens of COVID deaths, instead of looking at it from the lens of what is individual liberty worth? What are the things that are not being tracked in these situations? What does economic fallout look like? What is that overburdened middle class look like? Like what of a lot of other issues that are involved in play when you institute?
I can turn this right back on you. What the fuck? What's the freedom of having to live in a world where a literal virus could have been avoided and we just let it run?
It obviously can't be avoided. So, like, this idea of herd immunity, you already stated was fucking bullshit, right? The fact of the matter is,
like Singapore literally dropped their lockdowns because they had over an 80% vaccination rate. Like, they were able to ease it off like over time because they said, hey.
And are they COVID free? Is COVID gone?
It's not about being COVID free. It's about being able to decrease it to the point to where it's not
right. It's about a certain level of authoritarianism is acceptable from the supposed anarchist is acceptable from the state, so that we
accept the same policies. Dumb fuck.
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Even if it was community or the state, you would accept the same policies. You don't.
If individuals choose to fucking get vaccinated, that's perfectly fucking fine.
And if one of members of your community decides not to get vaccinated, you can kick them out. Like, this is part of anarchist policy.
Scott, at which point is it a tragedy then? How many people have to die for it to be a tragedy?
Ooh, that's an interesting number, right?
Everybody agrees that a pandemic.
I mean, if it was your sister or your brother or your grandma or your dad, would it be a tragedy?
There's people who have died as a result. You're missing.
Wait, hold on, wait. We don't have to go down this path. Everyone on this panel, hopefully, I think Fabian, you might be the only one that does it. Everyone agrees that this is a tragedy. It's a pandemic.
Obviously,
like this is a tragedy. So we don't have to go down. Yeah. Let's kill that. Everybody agrees that it's a tragedy. So we don't even need to go down there.
Wait. So can Fabian, can you answer that question?
Which one?
That's a really good question.
So how many deaths does it need to be a tragedy? The death of one is a tragedy.
What's the liberty of dying in a world?
No, it wasn't even that. Okay, I think where do you forgot the great point you made? Right. So in the anarchist framework, correct me if I'm incorrect, because I'm not an anarchist. If the community decides to do something and an individual in this community decides not to do what the community has decided to do, you can kick them out of your community.
Yeah, that's totally normal. Yeah.
That's literally like you would call that authoritarianism because a group is like enacting its power of violence.
Why would I? No, that's not what I'm saying.
Wait, stop. 1 second. So we don't really have the ability to just kick people out of the United States, unfortunately. But you can go.
I mean, we do deport people all the time, but okay.
Not enough. A half step in that direction, right? But with like a vaccine passport or a vaccine pass, right? So why not do that? Hey, the community has decided to do this. You're not.
The community didn't decide.
So because you're not doing it, right, we're going to restrict your ability to move around in the community for the safety of everybody else.
Because you're comparing apples to oranges, right? You're
decided to enact those regulations and those policies.
You're comparing apples to oranges, right? True anarchism is.
Oranges are both fruit. Why can't you compare them?
Okay, all right, but regardless, they're two different things here, right? Under an anarchist model, you wouldn't just have one anarchist community, most likely, right? You would have multiple anarchist communities. Now, obviously, anarchism as it's existed in like the Republic of Gospaya or Tehran or some of the more successful ones, right? Like they have been isolated, but that's because they've been surrounded by nation states, right? I don't think any anarchist is advocating that like everything will be fine so long as we have our island and the rest of you should just live in nation states, because they would still feel bad for people living under authoritarianism and tyranny, right? So the idea of a voluntaristic, a communitarian system or a Georgian system or even an ANSOC and ANCOM libertarian socialist system is, yes, if the community decides that they don't like you, they can kick you out, but you're not like you're going to another community. That's not the same thing.
The issue, FLS, we don't live in an anarchist society.
Well, it was asked to me, so I'm answering the question from that framework, and I'm saying why we can't compare those. You're agreeing with me.
But the question then comes is how do we deal with that if for the society we're living in right now, when we have to live under a state, when we understand this is a real issue, when the people who have the power, if they fail to protect us, even if they are our authoritarian dickheads, if they fail to protect us, that is basically us as anarchists can say, hey, you're not doing your job properly. Like that's one aspect.
But it's not protecting people to say that you are getting rid of your right to informed consent.
I think enough about anarchist theory.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to point out, like, basically, like, the frustration that comes when we as anarchists just say, oh, an anarchist society, anarchist model. We have to live in the society we are.
Right, you're pointing out what I already answered.
What y'all are pointing out is that anarchists try to rebuild the state without saying it's a state.
Basically.
We should just skip this entire conversation, right? So let's go back to what we were actually here to talk about, right? So, like, the lockdowns and stuff, like, I understand where you're coming from, Prime, and you were the person who kind of made me pessimistic going into the pandemic, because we had that panel.
I love that the
we were
other
talking
anarchist
about, should
admits
we
that he's a statist.
export
Like, what?
the vaccine to other countries, and I noticed then that we're way too nationalistic to support giving it away at a rate that we should. And like, that's what the booster conversation is really important. I was going to ask you, how do you feel about the booster conversation? Because every booster could, even though protection is waning for Americans, every booster would be a new person that wanted to be vaccinated, right? Which reduces the amount of unvaccinated bodies that the virus can live in. So how do you feel about boosters?
Actually, no, Charles Numbers.
Exporting those to other countries.
I think, if you're asking me specifically, I think that boosters are going to be, as far as I can tell, right? Not a virologist, but I think they're going to be a part of life, right? Like a normal like virus or vaccine panel, right? That we get.
Here's the deal, guys. I'll get the vaccine.
So
You fucking leave me alone. And did that work?
It
No.
makes sense
So
that these
stupid me.
countries are providing boosters to their individuals, because it's just part of what's going to happen. I'm not mad that countries are providing boosters, right? Which I guess you could say might be denying cure to others. I'm mad that they aren't letting go of those patents, that they aren't providing not just the intellectual property, right? But the infrastructure if need be, even though lots of places do actually already have the infrastructure. It's already there.
Mm-hmm.
There are labs, there are factories that can make the vaccines. They absolutely can. Don't listen to people who say they can't. It's already been proven, right? They can actually do that. Let's give them, if they're missing manpower or anything, right? Let's get it in their hands so they can start producing for themselves, right? Like,
It's worse than that, PrimeCayes. Pfizer is leveraging national banks and military bases in South American countries as means of them getting loans for vaccines, and then saying that they're not promising to give them to them in any amount of time, just as they get them, and saying that they're not financially responsible for any adverse effects or any problems that occur, because they know that there's likely to be tons of problems with these vaccines.
Wait, so what's the issue?
What?
So I think
Wait.
Okay, did you like, just pull this out of like?
I'm
fucking
sorry. You
immaterial
smoked their
stuff?
crack this morning?
Wait, hold on. I don't think there's actually anything wrong with that. So whether it's Pfizer doing it or it's the U.S. government doing that, what's the issue with us exchanging these vaccines or access to the vaccine for like loans or influence or like a fucking military base or something? I think that's totally fine. I don't think there's any reason we should just give away the vaccine.
Oh yeah, I'm fine.
To these random countries.
Oh, I think we should be giving them away because it's in our own interests, right? Like having new variants, having new variants like spring up and like potentially mutate, and like we have to fucking like shut down the whole country again, shut down the whole fucking global economy again because we were just like, no, vaccines. We don't give you vaccines. It's just like, why would we do that? Like we need them to be vaccinated.
Right. That's Sneaky's exactly right, because it shows the hypocrisy of the entire conversation, right?
FLS, could you just?
It's in our own interest.
Make sure could you get a little more specific
But
for me?
we can use. Oh, 1 second. So, yeah, Sneaky, I agree, right? And if you were to look at it that way, it's in our interest to get everybody vaccinated. But I think there are ways to get there that don't involve us just giving away vaccines.
Like what?
Whether it's a loan, whether it's some kind of influence within their
why would we do that?
Whether it's just a favor down the road. Like why
would we want to put some sort of like paywall, some sort of like barrier to entry for this when it's like something that we need, it's like necessity for our survival?
This literally affects every single person on the planet.
Yeah.
So
why would you
away
put
the
barriers to
vaccine
entry?
seems incredibly.
Why would you do that?
Yeah. What they're trying to ask you to do, being Connor, is what if we die through this capitalistic experiment with the vaccine, right? What if, because we're withholding this because of a paywall, there's new variants that come out?
No, not even any paywall, just like any kind of disincentive. Why would you put any disincentive?
So if another country cares so little about their population that they're not willing to take a loan or to allow us to put a bank in their fucking country to give them,
but they can kill us too.
That fucks us.
And
they can kill you too.
That fucks us though, Doobie.
And we can impose consequences for not doing this.
But you can't.
So if you don't have new variants, say, hey, if your population is not vaccinated, vaccinated, they don't get to travel cross-road. You're going to be fucking stuck in this.
He's taking a bit of China's foreign policy. He's doing a bit of debt trapping.
I think it's fine.
China was a super nice soft power. What are you talking about?
I think the rational thing from their perspective would be to take the deal, right? So I don't think there's any reason we need to.
Wait, so like this is the issue, though.
But that affects trade. That affects a lot of. We can't just go to every country and say, hey, if you don't pay us for the vaccine, then we're gonna block.
I love it. I broke the brain on all these anti-capitalists.
That's what he just said.
Wait. So we can say that. What I actually said before is that if you're not developing the vaccine, if you're not giving it up, your population isn't this percentage vaccinated, we're not going to allow traffic from your country into our country. We're not going to trade with you because you're not taking this seriously and you're putting us.
And then they're going to go.
So then now we're back to
then they're going to take a flight to you.
And then you give them a path to correct that. Through trade and with you, right?
But
to get
if
this
they
vaccine,
fly, wait. This is a ridiculous. This is like when we don't understand how globalized society is. When they fly to other countries that fly here, those people and their variants will still make it here. It doesn't matter.
We're a global hegemon, though. There's not that many people who are outside of our sphere of influence. Like I don't know what this hypothetical is.
Only the fucking capitalist supporters could see saving the entire planet as a fucking chance to like expand imperialism. Like fuck you guys, fuck you both. What a disgusting thing to believe. Oh yeah, do you know what? I know the whole world is gonna die, and maybe us as well.
The whole world is gonna die. Can you scale your shit a little bit?
So after break, hold on. So
look, at the end of the day, they're just Africans, all right? Just let them die.
So after breaking the brain of all of the anti-capitalists on the panel, are you now willing to admit that Pfizer, that funds half these fucking studies that you guys love to fucking get your data from, is a shit fucking corporation that might have some, I don't know, financial incentives to do some evil shit?
You could say, wait. Any corporation may have that, but you have to demonstrate that exists in reality. For like Pfizer got a majority of its funding from Germany, not even the U.S. So like this is like really stupid as an argument. Just because it's the potential doesn't mean it is abusing its authority there, right? Why would it want to abuse its authority? It doesn't want to get its people sick. It doesn't want them to die. It loses its entire public support by the government. It does make sense.
Okay, I'm saying that.
Just remember, Pfizer also makes the treatments, not just the vaccines. So like to them, like what's the profit motive there, right? The profit motive is in the treatment, not the vaccine. You make more off of treating illnesses than you do off of vaccinating. So
okay, hold on. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, but
so
I mean, unless you have to get a booster every fucking 3 months.
Like, you know.
Unless you have to get a booster every 3 months. Just because Pfizer came out with one treatment doesn't mean that they make the treatments, right? They're not making monoclonal antibody therapy, right? Like they're not.
It's also not very profitable. Vaccines are not profitable.
Okay, before it passes, I have to address this. What fucking Spoon was acting like, or Sneaky Debate Man, he was acting like, ha, we're Americans and we have the vaccines and you don't get them until you give us all your bases. That's not what the fuck I'm saying. I'm just saying, Brit Bonger, whatever, I don't give a shit. So but at the same time, for Western countries and developed countries and all that kind of stuff to say, hey, listen, we'll give this shit to you for fucking free. We want to give it to you for free, as a matter of fact, but you have to administer it in a way that we think is intelligent, because basically we don't want like partial vaccinations to lead to mutations. Not only that, maybe we'll give you like some kind of licensing for the fucking shit, and out of that, like, we want to do military cooperative shit and like pretending for a fucking second that like this isn't gonna happen is insane. And then number two, acting like it's only lose-lose. This is what's frustrating for me about like geopolitics or whatever, is like it's always like win-lose scenarios, where much of geopolitics is like win-win-win or like win-win-lose. So it's not always like brown people, black people are gonna die, but the whites are gonna rule the world. Like, it's not that fucking shit. But it's like, hey, how do we leverage Western hegemonic power?
Sorry, hold on. What is lose-lose about? You guys don't die, and also we guys don't die. There's no.
Okay, but you also made this fucking point where we're all gonna fucking die. Listen, I hate to sound like a fucking conservative, but like literally, like, fuck, like Can we not pretend that this is like the fucking Black Plague that's wiping out a fucking third of Europe?
Yeah.
Like, it is not the same thing.
Not yet. Do you know
Not
what we should do?
yet.
No, hold on.
Do you think it's going to happen? Are you?
Hold on. You know what we should do? Instead of vaccinating people, you know what we should do? We should just let it mutate until it is really terrible. That's a brilliant idea.
I don't even think that would happen. Like, what are you talking about? Like, pandemic disease is bad, but what the fuck are you talking about?
Connor,
do you not understand? Like this, what are we on? Like the 6th mutation now? It's gonna keep fucking mutating. It's gonna keep mutating. How long until we get a bad one, right? And we're all really fucked from it.
You understand the last time
you realize
flu shot was like a decade ago.
You realize that's what happened.
Flu every year. We're all gonna die from the flu.
Yeah, but because we were able to get vaccinated enough originally with the flu, then it's not an issue as much anymore.
You realize that's what happened with. Hold on. You realize that's what happened with RSV and dengue fever, right? Is it kept mutating because of vaccinated people, and the vaccine became more dangerous to those with dengue fever and RSV.
Let me reach Fabian. Fabian, you're going way too hard on this dude. Like, I understand that you have somewhat of a scientific basis, but you're being so hyperbolic that it's almost disgusting. Just like people with the vaccine, if there's a leaky virus, it's possible that it could learn to grow in those people's body. It could do the same thing if you're unvaccinated. So your body unvaccinated could also get the virus and die. So
absolutely, I've never said that wouldn't happen.
This whole appeal to everyone,
appeal to the science.
No, you're not appealing to science.
You're appealing to
studies on leaky vaccines. It doesn't happen in reality.
Yeah, this is some top tier anti-vax.
That's not true.
Makes you more.
Yeah, you can call me a conspiracy theorist. You can call me a conspiracy theorist all you want. You can call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, but Sneaky Debate Man.
It talks like a duck. It's a fucking duck.
You know, I apologize for making this about America, right? But you know, there was a recent Gallup poll that showed that 98% of Democrats and 84% of Republicans overestimate the danger of COVID hospitalization rates. 41% of Democrats believe that it is a 50% or higher chance that if you catch COVID in any way, shape, or form, that you will be hospitalized.
Thanks for deflecting from the leaky vaccines. I'm glad you're moving off the dumb point.
No, I've made my point several times that you're just wrong.
No, I've literally looked at this. I've had people argue about leaky vaccines before.
I've decided I actually don't value human life at all, and we should just use this as an opportunity to expand human power, regardless of how many people have to die. All right? Because I don't care about anyone in my media circle. Okay, fuck everyone. Fuck everyone else.
Is that supposed to be a parody of what I'm saying? Like,
okay. So I do want to say specifically here. Here's the issue, Connor. Is there's two kinds of like soft power you can kind of leverage, right? There's the soft power where you directly say, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to have some sanctions on you. But there's also the soft power where you build goodwill and charity, right? When you say, if you like spread out the vaccines as much as possible and like give it to as much as possible, like what's his name, Bo Fifth Column did a whole like YouTube video on this. Like an interesting thought process is we build good relationships because we give out the vaccines freely. What incentive is there in the government, like different governments, to like fuck it up? No, they don't want the populace dead. They want to maintain their authoritarian control. So why wouldn't they like give good vaccination policies? It doesn't make sense to me.
Because we live in the real world and logistics and governance is fucking hard shit, and it doesn't even matter if they're fucking malevolent. They could just be incompetent, meaning that you have to have checks and balances for power, and not only that, you don't get things unless you ask for them. So maybe I don't know, SDM, maybe Doobie was like, let's wield our Western hegemonic power against the balance of lives of brown and black. That's not what the fuck I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, hey, Nicaragua, you got a fucking drug problem. Train with our fucking SWAT team so we can up your fucking ability to actually do law enforcement, and we'll give you fucking vaccines for free. Yeah, like, holy shit, is that big of a fucking ask? Like, we win something, they win something. What's the fucking problem?
I don't understand.
Connor, what we do is,
why you're taking this as an opportunity to expand America's influence. It should not be about
we need to expand our influence. Why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't you?
What do you mean? Why wouldn't you? What is this like? What is this? What is this bonkers?
Are you on a Hold on. Okay, so number one, you accuse everybody else of autism, but number two, you're on a panel about politics, which is very specifically about the manifestation and wielding of power. So why are you acting like this
I never accuse anyone of being autistic. I don't know who the fuck you've been talking to who sounds like me. But
well, there was like 3 people fucking talking, so
I never ever do that.
Okay.
The idea that like any kind of opportunity
Angie.
to leverage the power of America to be increased should be taken as ridiculous, especially when like I guess I'm being hyperbolic, but the state of the world is at risk, right? Like
you're being hyperbolic.
Why would we do this? Right? Literally, how many fucking millions of people have died from COVID so far? We just gonna like keep that number going up because we got a chance of like getting some more power. Fuck you guys. I don't care if you're dead. Man, you won't fucking care. Do you know what? You won't fucking care until there's someone in your family dead, right? And that's the fucking be all and end all of it because you don't.
Your politicians are never going to give a fuck.
So the issue here for me.
I don't know. I almost died from COVID, and it
so
fucking sucked. That's all I'm saying. I almost fucking died. So
if you leverage your powers like through the vaccines to like do that, but there's also like the aspect of like the flash, the clapback. If you do that, you potentially ruin your relationships further. Saying, oh, America's just going to like abuse us of whatever situation is going to get. Like that makes sometimes countries less likely to negotiate with you. It feels to me is like in our situation right now, we're all dealing with a big issue. So we should try as freely as we can without like this like kind of like coercive measure and like potentially ruin our future relationships with these countries. Like if they say, "Oh, America helped us. They care about us." Like hell yeah.
That's not how. That's not how.
Connor and Doobie,
that's just not reality.
It's a double street. It's both ways. It's not just one way or the other. It's both ways how they potentially work.
They're gonna look for the next opportunity to screw us over to benefit themselves. They're gonna fucking do it.
No, listen.
That's fine. At least they're vaccinated while they're doing it.
Doobie, this is how we do it. Doobie, this is how we do it. All right, if you're gonna be capitalist, right, you adopt the same.
It's not about capitalist. It's about being political.
No, but listen. No, he's been capitalist, but no, listen. I'm a capitalist too. So this is what we do, right? If you look at what Sam's Club did, they gave out free samples to everybody, right? And then they eventually became one of the most wealthiest franchises of all time. So we give out the vaccine, the people love it, and then maybe they'll buy more, right? And then when they buy more, that's when you make the money. When they're like, "Hey, this is so good that pack that you gave me is so good that I'm gonna buy more," then that's what you do.
I remember doing
cocaine vaccines.
Certainly wasn't vaccines.
Yeah.
Okay, but can y'all? Okay, like seriously, I don't. We're on a politics panel, and like I understand the U.S. State Department is incompetent. Like, trust me, I get that part of what Wordy is saying, but it wasn't even about. It wasn't even about incompetence. It was just saying like the ways we can leverage power. There's like the negative sides, but there's also like the ways we can do it in like positive. Yeah, okay, do you think like a State Department person is gonna be like, yo, I was watching the Reverie last night, and Connor thought this awesome idea where we could fuck over small countries. That way they would take the vaccine, but then we would wield all of our power. And then they just like walk up to like some fucking banana republic in Central America, and they're like, yo, bitch, give us all of your natural resources, or else you're not getting shit from the fucking vaccine.
Pause. Connor.
I just want to remind you how incompetent you said the government was. So the opportunity for them to possibly be watching the show and listening to you.
Yeah.
Connor. I just want to point it. No, Connor.
Society just convinced
Connor.
Me. I rescind my argument.
Connor.
You're right. The State Department's incompetent. We can't trust them with this.
Connor.
Right, my bad.
You know where the term banana republic came from, right?
In Central American countries at the behest of American power.
None of that's
right. So, but that's what I'm saying. You're saying like, why would they do that? And we're like, yeah, they do that. They already do that. That's where the term comes from, right? Like this is the way they engage in geopolitics.
This is the way of the world. We're agreeing with each other. What's the disagreement?
Okay, wait. So like the issue here, Connor, is I understand.
You like cheap bananas?
I understand your perspective. I understand like very much black-pilled on the state of like the State Department and intelligence operations. I understand. But
Jason Society won this debate. I already conceded my point.
But we have to understand is we're in a unique situation. This isn't just about economics. This is fundamentally about like your state of your own fucking country and the people that live within it, like at the perspective of leaders, right? Is what like you can say, okay, we can leverage our power to like say, hey, if you don't do this, we can like enforce some sanctions. But there's also like that's the fundamental balancing relationship is sometimes you have to use like the positive incentives, sometimes you use the negative incentives if you're a leader. It's the stick in.
You believe in sanctions.
I don't see how anything that anybody has like Jason's the only person who had a good point, which was our government's incompetent. We shouldn't trust them to do basic diplomacy.
Connor's never run for office.
Yeah, so that's like that's a good point. But fucking like all the other points that you're saying is like we have to balance our power. We have to make sure that we're creating situations in which everybody can flourish. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like what are we saying that's different from each other?
We do such good diplomacy and spying that we remain the #1 world power this long. We do quite a great job.
Like for a country that is so fucking obsessed with maintaining their power and their sovereignty, you're fucking just completely disrespecting any other country's ability to do so, right? Like,
I'm sorry, what country are you from?
Hold on. Yeah, it's not like I'm fucking
Sorry,
in charge
what country
of it,
are you
alright?
from?
It's not like I'm in charge of it or defending the position.
Yeah, but can you say it? Because I'm just gonna keep asking it until you.
I'm from England, alright? Right. So,
Pax Britannica, remember?
Right. So like fucking. Just
Pax Britannica.
Just put the shit on the foot for 2 fucking seconds.
It's already
right?
on. Let him finish.
Right? You're in one of these like unvaccinated poor ass countries, right? You get people dying in the thousands, fucking people you know, your loved ones, whatever, right? Dying in the thousands, right? Big countries, go to the vaccines, right? So many fucking vaccines, they're fucking going off it. It's got more vaccines they can fucking use, right? And instead of just giving you the vaccines, which is beneficial to everyone, by the way, they go, we'll give you the vaccines, but only if you bend the fuck over for us, okay? Because fuck you, it's all about us, it's not about our power, right? But the matter of fact is, you don't give a fuck about these people. You absolutely don't give a fuck about these people, and you fucking care about expanding your own fucking power, your own fucking interest, which is fucking disgusting, right? And that's exactly.
Did I say win-win-win, or did I say win?
No, hold on.
You're such a fucking child, dude. Like, what are you talking about?
Your fucking definition of win-win-win is we get more power, and you have to do what we fucking say if you want to stay alive, right? And that's not fucking win-win-win for fuking anybody. That's utterly disgusting.
And thus we come.
No, fuck this. Cage match.
We're screaming now.
Do you straight up fucking think? Yeah.
Shh.
Do you fucking think that every
The Oathbreaker's mad.
from the United States, unless you talk 30% of the panel, shut the fuck up.
The Oathbreaker's mad.
Do you literally think every single fucking political venture outside of the United States is like, hey, if you don't let us stick a spiked dildo up your fucking ass, then you can't do anything with us? Is that what you fucking think that it fucking is?
It is.
You're so full of shit, and you're so fucking disconnected from reality. It's absurd. Yeah. Building schools for fucking people, infrastructure projects, anti-corruption laws, fucking training military and security forces. This is all the equivalent of having a giant spiked dildo shoved up your ass. This is the way a fucking child thinks, STM. And frankly, like, it's kind of fucking sad.
No, because you're doing it from the perspective of like, we'll do this for you as long as we get to use it, right? It's exactly the same thing we fucking bitch about China doing all the time.
Do you have a specific example that you want to use, or do you just want to use hyperbole? Do you have a specific example?
Of what, sorry?
Of just like us unilaterally sticking it up people's ass to no one's benefit but our own.
How about like all of
bananas
for the past 100 years?
Bananas.
Oh my
Vietnam?
God. Do I just have to start like Googling history books and sending
The
them?
United Fruit Company and Chiquitas.
Do you want to go on like Wikipedia and look at US bank coups in South America?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, this is.
Yeah, let's look at fucking GDP over the past fucking century and see the improvement in fucking people's lives.
Oh yeah, GDP is the best measure. Yeah.
Answer Steve's question really quickly. So you said what if we put the shoe on the other foot and they were in the position that we're in, right? I would expect them to do exactly what I'm suggesting, because this is how global politics works. Politics is power, right? So anything we do to help these people should also help us. It should come with strings attached. And I think that viewing this is like,
Tell counterpoints to save the spike dildo for the ass talk until November is over.
And just giving away all the shit that we've worked for millions of dollars.
I will legit say that.
No strings attached, nothing to benefit us.
Mutually beneficial.
Leaving on the table the opportunity.
No new variants.
The opportunity to expand our influence in these regions is ridiculous. That's how. I agree with Conan. That's how child sees the world.
Doobie, I also disagree with you, because we have to understand other countries have directly helped us into developing our own vaccines. We had multiple research processes.
You think that's not part of the calculation of soft power?
No, Connor, what I'm saying is the ways we leverage power also matters, not just the power itself. Like, we have to understand.
Where do we disagree? Because you keep saying shit that I understand. That
Connor, can I come in?
But the problem comes is like when we add like strings attached. It's like, why should we add strings attached for a fucking vaccine here? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, because the calculus says if we keep them alive, less variants, and it helps our country stay better. It helps the economy globally.
Can you understand? So for instance, like, let me just use a very specific example. That way, maybe we can get past the fucking childish hyperbole. Okay, not you, fucking SDM. All right. So let's say that it's like Nicaragua or someplace that's a fucking collapsed fucking cartel state, right? And we say
it's okay, traffic cone girth.
Vaccine program, you have to administer it in this certain way. That way, we make sure that we don't generate variants. And on top of that, you have a corruption problem. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna.
I was on Parler, but it was boring.
Anti-drug fucking task force that's gonna assist with your law enforcement, and we're gonna train them militarily, and you're gonna buy your fucking weapons from us. Now that benefits us financially. It benefits us politically. We have a fucking social and geopolitical fucking compromise that helps us advance goals in the region, and they get the fucking vaccine for free. Right. And on top of that, you can see the administration of it going out. Please tell me how this is like some super fucking spiked dildo going up the ass of South America.
All right, hold on. Let me just
extend an olive branch. I'll extend an olive branch, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm all for a little bit of neoconservatism, right? I've stated this before. We should be going into shitholes and making them better. I agree with that. Okay.
There we go.
But it should not be tied to the vaccine because that is in everybody's benefit, right? For the same reason that we should give them the vaccine is the same reason we should go over and help them. Out of the goodness of our hearts and because it's mutually beneficial. They should not be tied together.
Here's the thing, right? You're dealing with intellectual property here, right? And the fact of the matter is many of these countries already have all of the resources they need to produce this vaccine. And yet they're not able to do so, right? Like Argentina is an example. Argentina, right, made a deal with Pfizer where they were leveraging their fucking banks and military bases for loans because they desperately wanted this vaccine. Now, obviously, everyone on this panel knows how I feel about the vaccine. I think it's fucking shit. But also, I think if you're a 55-year-old with diabetes, you should probably go ahead and get vaccinated. That being said, what's that?
Funny how people are dying less the more we vaccinate.
Yeah, but people dying.
Okay,
isn't the only
regardless, it's what I'm saying is right is that this is about IP, right? And when you're saying like, when has America done this? You referenced it yourself, right? With the banana republics, right? Like we know that American corporate interests align with the State Department in so many fucking ways. They leverage trade organizations. They fought against the European Union to make it illegal for European countries to be able to inform people about what was happening with these bananas were coming from. You're saying like, well, isn't this a win-win situation? There are literally people in Nicaragua right now that their children are being born with stillbirths because of chemicals that are being used by these companies that we knew were deadly to humans, right? And would cause stillbirths and cause all kinds of issues in the fucking 70s, right? Like,
do you understand there's a difference between pollution and vaccines?
Do I understand that there's a difference between pollution and vaccines? Well, they're two different words. They're not synonyms. Like, what's your point?
What I'm saying is like this whole argument of like running down how Pfizer has like caused stillbirths, like yeah, that's bad, but it doesn't mean the vaccines are bad. The vaccines have been demonstrated to decrease the likelihood of death, decrease the spread of the virus, and therefore improve the conditions of the people. So like this is like,
would you like to listen to what I'm saying? Because that's not what I'm saying. I'm not even engaging in that. Like I'll just dismiss that aside as idiocy and move on.
FLS, would you like to extend me an ounce of charitability though? Do you think that I'm gonna come out onto the fucking panel and I'm gonna be like, oh hey, do you know what I think is fucking based? I think what's fucking based is like polluting fucking waterways so we can fucking like cause stillbirth children. I'm just gonna fucking take that, or do you think that I'm gonna have like?
No, of course not. Of course not.
What if it expands America's soft power? Right, a little bit of pollution, a little bit of stillbirth, maybe.
Right. What I'm saying is this: like it's one thing to talk about production, right? It's another thing to talk about research that we purchased from Germany, right? Because most of this research was done in Germany, and then we purchased it over in America so that we could finish the phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials, because clinical trials are way more difficult to get done in America than they are in Germany, right? It's one, but like regardless, right?
Dude, can you sum this up in 20 seconds instead of fucking 2 minutes of details that aren't necessarily relevant to your point?
What I'm saying is, relax. What I'm saying is that obviously we are in an unprecedented situation. And if you believe that to be true, and you believe that the vaccine is like this really helpful thing that's going to combat this virus, right? Then obviously we should have some shit to say about corporations in the State Department trying to strong arm other countries into leveraging as much as they can in order to sell to them, instead of just producing as much as we fucking can, because presumably it's in everyone's interest. I don't agree, but that being said, You need to be consistent at that point. Either the vaccine's amazing and it's going to stop all of these deaths, right? Or you can, or it's not, right? But if you think it's amazing and everything, then why are we strong-arming countries against our own?
I think you're mixing like 7 different people on the panel.
Yeah, I don't think Connor has been inconsistent. I don't think I've been inconsistent. So I agree the vaccine is great. I agree that if these countries had access to it, less people in these countries would die. I want to give them a way to get the vaccine. All I'm saying is if they want it from us, it's going to cost something, right? And if they don't want to pay the cost, if they want their people to die because they're got some hang up about whatever trade we're offering them, whether it's police training or a bank or whatever the fuck it is, that's on them, right? I don't think that like this idea that we just need to get everybody in the world a vaccine, or it's gonna like mutate into the T virus and kill everybody, is like realistic. I think you guys are being super hyperbolic about how dangerous this actually is, and I think that because these people are like aren't morons, right? Presumably, if the United States were to come to them, like Argentina, like you said they're leveraging their military base and the banks or whatever to get the vaccine, because they know it's fucking important, because they don't want their people to die. So they'll take the fucking loan and they'll get the vaccine, right? I don't see this as like a problem. I don't see any, and if you guys keep saying that, hey, this is really important, we should get it to everybody in the fucking world needs food, right? So should the United States just go around handing every poor country food for totally with no strings attached, for free?
Well, actually, I like the idea of decommodifying. Absolutely, I think we should decommodify food.
Hold on. What about water? What about housing? What about fucking
water and housing too? Yeah, decommodify all that shit.
All this shit is important. All this shit kills people. So where do you guys draw the line? If you're saying, hey, this is important, we need to get it to people or they're gonna die. There's tons of fucking shit like that you guys that I don't think you'd argue in this way for.
Yeah, you don't give a fuck about it because it's not on the fucking news. So like,
well, because it will kill them and not kill the panelists. That's the problem.
So I think the stuff like kids starving and everything, like that's absolutely bad. You know how I feel, Connor. But the issue here is like the difference is between a vaccine is that those people get infected and they spread the disease, they develop variants. We see as we develop the variants, like through like the alpha to beta to the delta to like what we're possibly looking at for maybe Omicron, is like these variants are worse because more transmissibility, more faster spreading, less vaccine resistance, therefore more deaths. Like this is just a true statement, and this is so frustrating to me. Is like, if you want to call it hyperbolic, I think is like a real concern is that the variants are getting worse if we can't properly deal with this. So the intended goal should be get the vaccine as much as possible.
This science is just ridiculous.
Barriers of strings attached, like basically inhibits that and increases our likelihood of like causing worse outcomes.
So isn't it true that the flu
I don't know how to engage with people that just like lie over and over again, but I guess like in my closing statement I'll just engage with it again. I don't know.
Right? Whether or not people get the vaccine. And it's just something you need to take into account.
Except when the vaccine literally helps deal with COVID.
So if we get a new then the flu vaccine.
Does the flu help with the flu better?
But every year they need to adjust it because there's some new variant that's out there. Right? So it seems like this is something that's going to happen. We got to stop being babies and acknowledge it's going to happen. There's no way to just stop it at the Omicron variant, whatever the fuck it's called right now, and be like, oh, this is the last one we're going to have if everybody gets.
Well, no, he thinks it evolves only in the unvaccinated population, which is just not true.
But there's a difference.
So variants might develop anyway. So pretending
he thinks that the vaccine fights it off and kills the virus and makes it not transmissible. We know the breakthrough cases infect other people and that variants form.
Of variants and like development that occurs. Like the flu doesn't have as many variants because we've been able to counteract most of it at this point. And basically,
that's not true.
But there's an array of vaccines that we use for the flu. We're not developing a bunch of new ones. There's an array, and they can estimate which flus are going to be coming.
No, they look at earlier reports in other countries, and then they make a vaccine that's tailored to those early reports. I think it's new every year. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think it's new every year.
No, you're
correct. They look at the early reports and they tailor it specifically to how that version of the flu.
I also want to say, like, the problem comes here is COVID isn't under control yet. Like in the world, it's getting more under control as we have like 50% of the world having like one dose.
But Wordy, really quick, like, I agree with 98% of what you say. There's like literally, it's weird listening to you for like 2 minutes because I'm like, I agree with this, I agree with this, I agree with this, I agree with this. What I'm saying is that we have partners, we have allies, we have prioritization, we have a limited amount of manufacturing. FLS brought up like basically that there are places that could manufacture it themselves. I think you could absolutely license it out to those places. And on top of that, you could do max capacity manufacturing globally, but at the same time, have a fucking negotiation. And SDM is acting like I want to fucking take like a fucking plastic dildo and stick it up the fucking butt of every fucking
counterpoints
in the world over.
Counterpoints.
And literally, I'm just trying to say like, let's do some fucking cross trading for security, anti-terrorism issues, and anti-drug issues.
Counterpoints.
That's literally it. It's not the biggest fucking ask in the goddamn
it's the second. It's the second to last day of No Nut November, and I feel like it's really insensitive that you keep talking about dildos. I think a lot of people would appreciate.
Well, what are you into?
You know, I'm just saying, like, I think people are struggling right now, and you're really not helping in that regard.
Well, you know what? If SDM didn't keep accusing me of trying to sodomize people, then maybe we wouldn't be talking about it so much. But you know, he keeps accusing me of metaphorically sodomizing people.
Connor, I think the first time I spoke to you, you talked about shoving a broomstick up my ass. So you have a history of trying to sodomize people. So.
Well, the 18th time, the 18th time I met him, he was talking about dudes jerking off in a Discord server. So you know.
No, but
okay.
you always say eat my whole ass too. This is weird, Connor.
So,
you gotta stop.
Wait,
the meme is inserted, boys.
Connor is like you.
Wait, did you miss the gooning discourse?
Wait, so here's the issue for me, Connor, is like you're literally holding
right
like people's lives and your own country's lives at like basically gun.
Oh my god, you guys understand? Like, I feel like the State Department could have this negotiation in about 40 seconds. Hey, Argentina, we want fucking like, what do they have? Like penguins or something like that?
Well,
send us 20 fucking penguins.
Okay.
Send us 20 penguins for the fucking zoo, and let our fucking SWAT teams train together, and we'll fucking give you the vaccine. And Argentina says, oh wow, that sounds like a fucking fair deal. Let's goddamn do it. And we say, wow, this is mutually beneficial to fucking both of us. Let's do it. Like what the fuck is the problem? Where like literally, like, I don't care about No Nut November.
But what if
like,
a country says no? What if a country says
why
no
are you
and they
adding all
develop
these
a variant?
Well, why are they fucking prioritizing fucking 20 penguins and fucking cross-trading military and DEA shit over fucking stopping a deadly pandemic? What the fuck are we talking about?
Connor, right? Your ideas are like good, but they shouldn't be connected to other ideas. There should be zero disincentive for them like getting vaccinated, right? Zero, right? Even if it sounds like good, they might be like, this add-on has like some drawbacks, right? So
yeah, they lose fucking 20 penguins. Like,
right,
what the fuck?
Right, there we go. Right, so
they'll survive the fucking penguins.
So I agree that we should do these things otherwise. Like I said, I'm all for a little bit of neoconservatism.
Penguin Team 6, I love it. Imagine having a fucking government negotiate on behalf of a corporation and being okay with it.
But it
right?
should not be tied to the vaccine, all right? That this is like something completely independent,
okay.
right? This is
I agree with like 90% of what you fucking bleeding hearts are saying. I feel like I'm asking for almost nothing, so I just don't think we're gonna agree anytime.
I feel like a government shouldn't be I feel like a government shouldn't be negotiating on behalf of a corporation for a vaccine that has tons of fucking problems.
I'm gonna be a little mean.
I agree with you.
And I are the only adults in the fucking room. You guys are being fucking children.
So,
like,
one thing we're missing from this
during
completely.
a crisis. Yeah.
One thing we're missing from this completely is just the pure logistics of sending these vaccines to other countries. Like, I was looking here just to see like how long, like the shelf life is for these vaccines. Even
I love it. Like the fascism just comes out, you know.
Month, right. So.
Corporations in the state will work together to make the world a better place.
Being destroyed because they were going to expire, right? Well, if we make the vaccines for like people to use in our country or in other countries, then they don't get used. Even by the time that happens, if they tried to ship that stuff, especially with all the logistical issues we're already having with other things we need all across the world, I don't think it's really feasible to do this. And if it is, if you do want to go the extra way and like do special type shipments and stuff like that, which we could do, I think the cost of that would be just so astronomical and just so outside of the scope of what the US or even like the other G20 nations could provide. I just don't think it's really feasible. I think the better option would be to try to give these other countries, like I think Fabian was saying, the intellectual property to let them try to create the vaccines themselves. Maybe would be easier, so that way it's on site, it's right there when they need it. I don't think we're going to be physically able to do that.
Isn't that still worth something though?
Yes,
like,
I
isn't
do
that
agree.
worth-
Yeah, I mean,
isn't,
that's
isn't
fine.
that worth like cross training
But
and 20 penguins?
I
Like,
just think-
I
I
don't
just
know where
think-
we're losing each other.
The ease of access, we're thinking like this is just
Nah,
gonna be so
fuck
easy
intellectual
to just,
property.
oh, these people need the vaccines. Boom, we're sending it to them. Like it's not that. That's not that easy. The logistical side alone is.
Yeah,
just
but
absurd.
but even in this example, FLS was saying that Argentina has like organic ability to fucking produce. So literally say, hey guys, send me fucking 20 goddamn penguins and fucking cross train with our fucking SWAT team, and we'll send you the fucking IP for it. Like what the fuck? And like this is a phone call, and you guys are acting like it's a fucking like it's a 6-month negotiation. Like I don't know what the fuck we're
The
talking
problem
about.
is that IP should have been released to every country anyway, so they could develop their own, even if we weren't going to ship out the vaccine.
Well,
a lot of these places have facilities where they could create their own vaccines if they had the IP for it.
Yeah,
So-
IP is fucking
It doesn't
gross.
necessarily have to be a
We
huge
disagree.
logistical
Here,
thing.
Connor, I'll give you something, okay? So we'll do vaccine. I say, and hey, here's a good option. Do that too. And they're like, okay, cool. Move on with our lives.
That's what I said. They shouldn't be connected. I'm okay with that. They just shouldn't be intertwined.
Yeah, I don't know why you guys act like a fucking 40-second phone call is so fucking hard. I don't know.
Put that idea on the
shouldn't
table.
I think-
Wait one second. Wait, let me just ask this question, right? Because again, you guys are doing this thing where they absolutely need this and yada yada. There are plenty of other diseases, viruses people could get that could mutate, variants that might someday turn into like a fucking zombie virus and kill everybody. So why shouldn't the United States, or any nation with the ability to do so,
They should.
We already kind of
They
do.
should. They should.
Just send out every
should.
possible.
We
We
medical
send everything to everybody all the time. Got it, STM. Thanks.
I'm chewing the bullet. I'm biting it. I'm eating the
Yo,
whole
this
bullet.
STM.
It's not a hard one to do. It's we should give everybody everything. Thanks, SDM. I feel
Yes, we
like a
should.
more informed person.
We should
Wait,
invest
can
in
you-
the global south.
Can you call him?
Oh, okay, cool.
Instead of STM.
What? Yeah, sure.
Maybe, and maybe this is like, I don't know, crazy right wing from the right winger here, but maybe we shouldn't be allowing large corporations to leverage their intellectual property on other nations like they do all the fucking time. And instead, we could just have it be open source, because if you really believe the vaccine is that effective, that is literally the quickest decision we could make right now to get more people vaccinated.
I'm not
The
against
biggest mistake the country made
Hold on, wait.
was
I just want to make sure.
Gambit.
I just want to make sure I'm correct, because we're about to close this topic out. So we went from, being reasonable and saying, hey, we should probably give away some vaccines, to now everything should be open. What is this?
I think we're just at the meme stage at this point. We're just kind of
We have to be.
Well,
We have
yeah,
to be.
It's fine. I brought up penguins first. It's my fault.
No, Doobie is branching into our overarching ideology to see if we can justify it within our technical systems,
Technocratic.
Right? And I can't.
I have to say the only thing that matters is Biggs and Sneaky Debate Man, the BSDM community. I support it.
Wait, so I want to be clear, but so Fabian, I like half agree with you. I'm okay with it right now because the corporations are American, so that makes it a little easier for me to swallow. But I'd be totally fine with Pfizer or any of these massive pharmaceutical corporations being nationalized.
Yeah, I don't need more fascism as the solution.
So
Like, I'm
the
good.
biggest-
Yeah,
The
I love
biggest
agreeing
issue
with
from the
Doobie and then
start-
ending on a high note. It's super fun for me.
I will nationalize. I love it.
Infinite.
I'm loving it.
Why should we leave the development of vaccines that save American lives in the hands of corporations?
The problem, Doobie, that we have now is they're getting the pharmaceutical companies are getting the best of both worlds.
That's why
They're
we
getting-
support Medicare for all.
They're getting the protection and the immunity, and they're getting the money from the government without any real responsibility.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to push this out. That's the whole problem from the start of this whole thing. If we were going to do it in the right way and the government was going to take action and lead the way, they needed to make that part of the stipulation to these companies would be like, we're going to pay you this X amount of money, and then we're going to own the patent, or then we're going to be able to decide what we do with it. Because I think the whole problem, like you said, like it's just you can't get the best of both worlds like that. They're just going to use the system, like Fabian was saying earlier. They're just going to use it to extort as much value as they can, and they don't give a shit about anybody else. I don't think anybody really, and I mean, aside from the few bleeding hearts that we have here on the panel, like Sneaky Debate Man, that actually care about people, right? Most people don't care about anybody, like he said earlier. Like, until it happens to you in your life, it's out of sight, out of mind. Like, whether
I deeply care about people. I want to be free.
The
Right,
issue
yeah, I
for me
understand.
with this rhetoric is like, I understand where you're coming from. Like, we understand like corporations leveraging influence in order to like get better deals and everything. The problem that comes is like, you'd have to show me how, like, we could talk about that as an aspect. You have to show me how that is having a detrimental effect on the development of the vaccine, and yet there hasn't been really anything shown.
I was just saying that if the government had stipulated that from the start, then the government could have then said, hey, to all these countries, here's the intellectual property, we're going to share it. The problem now is it's intertwined with these corporations who are in no way.
Of course you missed something. We're 2 hours into the stream, but you'll be all right.
Right. So
I'm going to post it on YouTube.
Start, that would have been the more proper way to do it. Maybe they couldn't do it. Maybe they weren't going to bite on that. I don't know what the negotiations were, but to me that seemed like the better route from the start.
I'm trying to remember because I've read bits and pieces about Pfizer and different shit, and there was some aspect of like they were trying to get the information on the vaccine process or anything, and it's like the patent or something, and basically the problem that comes with that it's like 20,000 pages, and it's like it would take years just to sort through all that data. And then there's also like the aspect of like in terms of IP,
no,
like,
it wouldn't.
I'm fine with that. Like, I want it to be more open source because I think having more open source patents is like a good thing. It's complicated because it's like I feels like we're kind of like gently poking at possible things, but we're not like landing on anything conclusive.
Okay. Inclusivity. I love it. That's the way to end the topic. Let's move on.
You just watched a clip from our Twitch channel, Fabian Liberty. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe here on YouTube, or go ahead and give us a follow on twitch.tv/Fabian Liberty.